Welcome back to the New Modelers Army channel. I'm Dave. This video, our model build, is going to be dedicated to the memory of Leonard Nimoy, who recently passed away. He is somebody who I greatly admired, and he's going to be very missed. Any funds raised by the views on this video will go directly to COPD charity to help find a cure. And I just thought it would be a good way to remember Leonard. So the build for this this video is going to be AMT's Star Trek Mr. Spock, First Officer, should I say, Mr. Spock. And I've had this kit for well over a decade. You see, it was produced in 1995, which is actually the year I came to the US, and I've been wanting to build it, and it's just been put away in a box. I've just been waiting until I got more proficient with the airbrush, and I think I'm at a stage where I can actually do a pretty good job with this. It's a good likeness of Mr. Spock. It's not exactly like Leonard, but hopefully when it's finished we'll be able to get a good kit built out of this. So anyway, let's open it up. This is the first time I've built one of these kits, and step one is actually trimming off all of the excess. I guess it would be like, you know, trimming them off a sprue or a tree and cleaning them up. You can see they've got an extra piece that you need to trim off here. You can see there, you need to trim that piece off. You need to trim off the bottom of basically all the joints before you can assemble this. Hopefully you can see here on the shoulder, compared to this one, there is a little bit of you can see a little bit of a gap at the top. Now this side had it too, but if you heat up one of the sides, and then as you're attaching it, it'll just kind of mold into the shape of the other side, because this is hard and this is soft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up a little bit more, and then I'm going to put a little amount of glue on both sides. I've already put some on the shoulder there. And you want to keep the piece moving. Don't leave it on one spot, because you'll just melt it. Use your hair dryer or your heat gun. And then the glue that I'm using is very much like super glue. In fact, it is very much like super glue, but it is a fillable or gap filling glue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come fairly close to the edge, but not all the way to the edge. And I'm using a liberal amount because I want it to fill this little gap left behind, which you really can't see much now, but later on when I paint it you will be able to see it. So let me make sure that this is on correctly. Okay. So I'm just pressing it in, and it becomes like almost like a putty, in that it will just contour to the shape of the shoulder here. I can feel it cooling down already. Hopefully you can see that there is a difference. And the glue, this glue, which is gap filling 5 to 15 seconds, Instacure Plus cyanoacrylic, is the stuff that you want to use, or a similar brand. I've drilled holes in the bottom of his heels, and I'm going to place magnets on the bottoms of the base and the bottom of his feet. So I'll be able to, he'll be able to stand up, and then if I want to be able to remove it later on, I can. Probably got a little bit too much here, but what I want to do is I want to put it inside the boot, not just around the magnet. So like I said, these magnets are extremely strong, and I'm a little concerned that they'll just pull out through the epoxy if I don't put enough in there. So I'm going to get it inside his boot. There you go, there's the first one in the heel. I glued both of the magnets with the epoxy into the boots of Spock here. I also glued magnets onto the bottom of the base, and now he's on there pretty firmly. He's not going to fall over, at least anyway. So on to the next part, we're going to add some colour. Painting Spock's hand here. This is one that I've already painted, and what I'm trying to do is just create a little bit of depth in the paint, some shading, and to do that we're going to be using a three-step method. Actually it's probably going to be more like four, because when I've finished with the basic skin tone, I'm going to go back and do some more work with pastels. But I don't want to make Spock's skin look too pink, too human. I'm going to be using Tamiya's buff, which is XF57, Tamiya's XF15, which is flat flesh, and then I lighten some of that up with some XF2 white. So we have 3 stages. So I've got both of the hands to the point where I'm going to stop. They are pretty close in shade. I'm going to go, I'm going to seal these, and then we're going to use a little bit of pastels to give them some more shading. Now this is a technique I learned from Leona, and I'll put a description, I'll put a link in the description below. And it's a pretty simple process. In fact, it's simple but extremely effective. What you need is chalk pastels. Don't use oil pastels. To create the powder, and this is pretty much like, you know, the hobby pigments that we use on tanks and things like that. It's pretty much the same process. I'm just going to scrape it a little and you'll see you can make yourself a nice little pile of pigment. So I'm going to use 3 colors. I got a red, like a nice brown there, and a little bit of white in case I mess things up. So let's go for to start off with, you have to decide where your shades are going to be. Of course, in the crease of the hand, in the middle of the fingers, and then we're going to do a little bit on the wrist. So basically just going to pick it up a little bit, and this brush is dry. And I'm just going to pull it across the areas where I want it. Okay, I'm going to give it a coat of matte varnish, and it's now dry, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. It's got some really nice skin tones to it and some highlights, and of course some nice shading. I'm going to add a little bit of detail to the hand with some Vallejo white paints here. I'm going to give Spock some fingernails. I'm not going to put a lot on the brush, and I'm not going to put a lot on the nail either. I'm just going to add a tiny amount. I've come to a stopping point with Spock's head, and kind of like the direction that it's going. I'm going to stop and see how it looks when his uniform's done, to see if it needs any more detail. But I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. Dan's of course look good, but anyway. So back to his uniform. Now originally I was going to spray this TS44 bright blue, but as my son pointed out to me, he was like, that's more the colour of the uniforms that they have in the new Star Trek. And you know, a kid's right, so what can you do? So I'm going to be using this. It's X14. This is Tamiya's Sky Blue, and like I said before, you know, his uniform changes colours over the series and especially in the movies, of course. But I think this Sky Blue will probably do a better job. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll have to fall over. Get the batch mixed up. I really like the way the Sky Blue came out. It received 2 coats and then a little bit of a highlight, and then I went in again with the pastels, this time blues and a purple, just to give some of the figure a little bit more definition. And I really like the way this pastels work, and every time you use them, which should only be like once or twice, you want to give it a coat of varnish, matte varnish or gloss, whatever you paint your figure with. So this is now dry. I've kept the my tape and my covering on the legs here, because once I've painted the gold on the sleeve and of course the Star Trek emblem on his chest, I'm going to give it another quick light coat of varnish here to make sure that's well protected. So I'm going to go ahead and paint. We have here Tamiya's X12, which is gold leaf, and Tamiya's X11, which is chrome silver, for the detail on the shirt. While we're waiting for some of the pieces to dry, I'm going to work on Spock's sidearm here, and I'm going to pin it. It really doesn't have an attachment somehow. On the box it just has it attached to his pants, but I don't really want to glue this to the side of him, so I'm going to do a very small pin here to attach it. Using the pin vise here to finish off Spock's phaser. So I'm just going to put a little bit of super glue, just the tiniest amount, on the pin. So just one thing left, his hand. Just like the magnets inside of the boots, I'm going to put the epoxy resin inside the hand. it kind of drips down through the hand. Into the socket here. Just put a little bit. Roll up. There he is, Spock. Is now officially complete. So here's Mr. Spock, finally finished, and I think he looks great. Considering the troubles I had in the beginning with the kit, I think that was just down to the fact that it was well over a decade and been sitting in my collection too long. I should have started it a long time ago, but I really like the way it came out, the colour of the shirt, the different finishes I use for his boots. I use a high gloss for his boots, a matte for his clothing. I used a semi-gloss for the base. I think those three together work really nice and give the paint a little bit more depth. But the skin tone looks really, really good. Another big shout out to Leona. Thank you for putting up that tutorial on how to use pastels on figures. It really was a great video and a tool that I'm going to be using over and over and over again as I make more figures and GK kits coming up. But I really like the way he came out, and it's just been a great figure to finally finish. Mr. Spock, and to be able to dedicate it to the memory of Leonard Nimoy, somebody who I'm never going to forget. But anyway, thank you for watching the New Modelers Army channel, and I hope you all live long and prosper.